as I got older and I traveled to Ghana and I learned who I was when I cooked in Accra, that's when I started to dive really deep down into the history. I'm JJ Johnson, and I'm the chef and founder of Field Trip. I first knew I wanted to be a chef at the age of 7 years old. I saw a commercial for the Culinary of America. I told my parents I was going to be a chef. Everybody giggled and laughed. But I was always cooking in the kitchen with my grandmother. She made the kitchen fun. She injected food DNA into me. Food was always around me as a kid. I never thought about doing anything else. The first meal I ever cooked was for my Aunt Lisa. She wanted lasagna for her birthday, and I burnt the lasagna straight up. It was terrible, but everybody was cool with it. But I used to cook for everybody's birthday. That was our thing in our household. When it was your birthday, you can ask for whatever you wanted. You would go grocery shopping, and then we would cook. I would cook whatever everybody wanted, but I was making things from like paella to clams oreganado to mac and cheese. We weren't allowed to fry chicken in our house because my mom always thought somebody was gonna burn the house down. But yeah, I was always cooking. I would go to Queens to the cookouts and be on the grill with an uncle or auntie or cousin. I was always around food. Yeah, I wasn't like on the grill, you say. I was like there handing them the chicken or smelling it, but we would go, my grandfather's from Barbados, we would go to Long Island, and I remember this memory of like them taking a whole hog, dropping it into the ground and like jerking or jerking the hog underground. I was standing with whoever that person was. They were a family member that was a chef that did this, and it was like very appealing to me. And then they would then pull it out the ground, throw it on the table, and everybody would pull off the crispiness of the fat and everything. So food, like I said, food was always there. People were injecting it into my DNA. But yeah, I was like underneath somebody's arm. I wasn't flipping and whipping on the grill. My dad is African American. Family's from Mississippi and North Carolina. My mom is Puerto Rican and Caribbean. My grandmother's from Puerto Rico. My grandfather's from Barbados. And when you bring that family together, you get a very robustness of what I consider America is. But also you can follow that lineage back to West Africa. You can see the food traditions. And a lot of that food, or a lot of the people who represent me, is the food that I've been cooking, or I'm starting to cook or feel more comfortable with. And I think, I was raised as a Black boy, and food was just on the table. That was just it was just who we were. It wasn't that, in the 90s, somebody was saying, your grandfather's from this part of Barbados, your grandmother's from here, your grandmother's from North Carolina, your grandfather's from Mississippi, and this is what the food was. It was like, you should just be thankful there's some food on the table, and you should eat it. And as I got older and I traveled to Ghana and I learned who I was when I cooked in Accra, that's when I started to dive really deep down into the history. That was, 10 years ago now, or 13 years ago. Now I'm starting to feel more comfortable about who my family is and what I should be cooking. And I think that's what you'll see out of me in the next 10 years. I think, I was a chef at the Cecil in 2013, which is crazy to say. It's like 12 years ago. I felt like it was yesterday. And in that time, you would have food of the diaspora, but it was at mom and pop joints, right? You could walk on 116th Street in Harlem. You could go to Brooklyn. You might find a little couple spots in Queens, but nobody was really talking about those places. Like if that was your hood, you were going to Jollof and you were eating Ghanaian food. Or if you were Nigerian, you knew the spot in Brooklyn and you were taking your friends to it. The Cecil really kind of put some eyeballs on the fact of like, what is this food and should we write about it in a mainstream media aspect? And now when you look 12 years later, you can go a lot of places around the country and you're seeing quote unquote Afro-Caribbean, you're seeing the food of the African diaspora. You're seeing Nigerian food mixed with Chinese food. You're seeing a lot of different things happening. And for me, it's really great that people are able to raise money, convince a landlord, maybe put in a hotel and cook this style of food knowing that Americans want it. And I think you're only gonna see more and more of it through the years, and the dining scene is gonna change. I say this, John George and Danielle both cook French food. Nobody ever questioned how their food was similar. And nowadays, you're starting to see people not question the food of the diaspora if they're 10 blocks away or 2 blocks away. They're just like, oh, they make pepper shrimp like that? Oh, he makes peppers, or she makes pepper shrimp like that, or they make a roast, they make red beans and rice, or they make jollof, or they make suya, and you're seeing how different it is because it's really food of somebody's grandmother or somebody's village or somewhere you lived, and it's all made differently. And I think that's the beauty of what the food of the diaspora you're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years. I think the specific dish that made my career pop off were 2 dishes, was collard green salad and oxtail dumplings. Those 2 dishes, I think you can talk to anybody today that's had my food. Those are the 2 dishes that are always gonna pop up in a conversation. Like, wow, when is that collard green salad coming back? When's oxtail dumplings coming back? I think the reason why they were so significant was nobody was eating collard greens raw, or seeing them raw, right? Everybody's been told that they need to be braised or simmered for a really long period of time. And oxtail getting put and wrapped inside a dumpling, you weren't seeing either. That gave you very much a Caribbean-esque feeling of when you were eating it. Yes, the dumpling is Chinese, but when you were getting it in this curry broth, you were like, hold on, this takes me to somewhere of familiarity. So those, I would say, are the 2 dishes. You have me thinking, is it something else? But I think those are the dishes that kind of started to make a mark on my career early on. I still got to say this day, they're a combo deal. It's President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Like, those are 2 folks that I would want to walk in my restaurant. I think just because what they stand for and their love of food, I would love to see them one day. I think collaboration is really, in my process, really great. I think earlier on in my career, I was trying to do as many collaborations as possible. And I think collaborations with chefs were really important because you get to see food through a chef's eyes, how they cook it, what they do in their kitchen. I remember doing a collaboration dinner with Michelle Bailey at the Gray 7 years ago, cooking for an Edna Lewis dinner. And it was just me and her, and like looking at her team work. The kitchen's upstairs, the kitchen's downstairs, kind of like how all this flows together. But I've collaborated with a lot of chefs across the country or even in the world, and just seeing like how the food is put out, what they do, how their team respects them. And you get to learn from that. I don't really know what I want to be remembered for. You talking like I'm old. I hope people just remember me for that I treated people really well in this industry, that I was fair and honest, and that I was always championing people around me. I would say that's probably what I would want to be remembered for in this madness of world. My fondest food memory is always around rice. Doesn't matter what it is or whose rice it is. If I come to your house and I eat a pot of rice, it's gonna make my mind go wild, and I'm gonna start thinking about this place or that place. But yeah, my fondest memory is Matthew Davis's house in Pennsylvania. He was Korean. His mom would make rice in a rice cooker before they were popping. She would sprinkle some vinegar or some type of nori or seaweed on top. She would scoop it on my plate. I can still smell it and remember it right now. It's my greatest food memory of all time. And I think when I look back, I think I was invited to Matthew Davis' house because I would eat their food. and anybody else that was coming over wasn't really like, mom was wasting all their food on all these kids. Black History Month for me is American history. What I hope that it does for people is it allows them to see the contribution that Black folks have had on this country, and allows everybody to celebrate it. But overall for me, it's just a reminder of everything that we've done, all the effort we put forward, all the hard work, and all the tribes and tribulations, or the moments of things that we didn't want to do for the better. And as much as, I'll say this, there's times where I'm like, why don't we celebrate Black History every month, right? We should be celebrating every month. But then there's a moment of me that says, it's probably good that we do have a month. I think sometimes maybe you do need to slow it down. You kind of put all this focus point, put the lightning in the jar and let it explode, and push it into people's faces. It's a shame that in 2025 we still have to do that and we can't celebrate it every month. But I think in this this Black History Month is more important than any other Black History Month, I think, in history at the moment, because I think people need to see why we celebrate it, why it's been celebrated, and and why it's necessary. And I think it's more than just Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. It's more than just, I have young kids and they're learning things that I didn't learn as a kid. Did you know a Black person created the light bulb? Did you know, like, this is my house. Did you know that, electricity was potentially, all these things? And most of the things that we touch around food or around things that we utilize, was created by a Black person. Did you know that the freezer was created by a Black person? So, a lot of things, when you dive deep into society, American history, Black people have put their hands, they've touched it all, and it just needs to be celebrated. I don't think my piece of advice would change. I live my life off of one piece of advice that my dad gave me as a 14-year-old boy, that don't live life like you coulda, shoulda, woulda. And in his life, he had a chance to potentially change his life. He could have been one of the first Black MLB umpires, but we would have had to move to Florida. And he said his wife, my mother's career, was bigger than his career. So he went and focused on her career and uplifted her. But he could have been an MLB umpire a lot earlier on in life if he didn't live life being scared, or you should have done this, or what if you would have done this? So I've always lived by that. I've always asked those questions to myself, and I would still live with that advice today. If I could share a 10-to-1 cocktail with one person, it's with Mark. I would share it with the founder. I think for me, it's important to drink with him is because he created the rum and he knows how to utilize it the best, the vision, and to see the smile on his face, the excitement. It doesn't get any better than that. And every time he's creating something, he texts me, yo, you got to try this special one. And I'm like, well, I know you sent me a bottle, but I'm gonna hold that bottle to drink it with you, right? Or if I am drinking it and he's not there, I always want him to be there with who I'm drinking it with. So I wouldn't really drink it with anybody else. I mean, the only thing I talk about is like, listen, you watching this video, you trying to figure out what to eat, pull up to Field Trip. This is my rice bowl shop. It's all around New York. There's one in the Atlantis in the Bahamas. We would love to see you there. Super affordable place with delicious food.